Alright, this webcam is a little bit slow and choppy, so we're just gonna go straight to the Derby view. But hi, thanks for coming. We are working on some roller derby. This is basically how to watch roller derby as a new fan. Can talk about a little bit about the rules, a little bit about the strategy, and go over like some of what actually makes roller derby sort of amazing and fun. So, I will stop and take questions anytime one comes up, pretty much, because this is a bit of a Q&A session as well, if you happen to have any. And we'll probably end up reviewing the rules sort of briefly as new people tune in. But my name's Aaron, or Terabyte. Why should you listen to me? I've been skating for 8 years. I skate for the number 6 team in the world, the Texecutioners, out of Austin, Texas. And I love teaching about roller derby and teaching roller derby. So, it's something that I sort of love doing. But let's talk about the start of the game. We're going to be watching the Victorian All Stars (VRDL) versus arch rival, the arch rival All Stars. VRDL is out of Australia. Don't remember the exact city. Sorry. Arch rival is St. Louis, and this is an absolutely amazing game to watch. I'm not going to spoil it for you in terms of who wins, but I will tell you it is a tight game, and it is at the absolute top of roller derby strategy. So, what do we have going on? Well, VRDL is in blue with the lightning. Arch rival is in white. This was played in the Georgia W. Tush Invitational Tournament in Montreal, and it is a sanctioned game by the WFTDA, the Women's Flat Track Derby Association. The WFTDA is a main governing body for flat track roller derby, and specifically women's flat track roller derby. It is the premier space for playing roller derby. It has, I believe, 400 odd teams that are or leagues that are members, and these are among the top two or top several, not top two teams in the world. So let's get started on it, shall we? I'm going to go ahead and give us a little bit of sound, but feel free to sort of ask questions about it. This game is played, barring penalties, by 10 people at a time. Each team has a roster of 15, and 5 of which can be on the track at a time. 4 blockers from each team, and 1 jammer from each team. Yeah, I know the cam. I'm going to go ahead and kill the cam off. Also, hi, White Prince. Alright, so there are 4 blockers from each team, 1 jammer from each team. The jammer is the point-scoring player, and the blockers are the ones who are starting up front. They are responsible for both offense and defense. VRDL is playing a little bit of a trick here. They actually had more people on the track than they could before the jam, and they did that in order to confuse the other team as to who is actually going to be doing it. Oh, I appreciate that. All right, so if you notice, the VRDL, the Arch team in white here, sort of all settled back towards where the make that size a little bigger. All settled back towards where the VRDL team was as soon as the whistle blew. They do this in order to take up space, and we'll talk about why in just a moment. The VRDL jammer in blue with the star in her helmet attacks the pack, and her goal is to push through and come back around. However, you notice that she's actually not the first one to get through. the Archjammer, Rictator, took a nice inside line that was cleared for her, and she's going to be the lead jammer. That lead jammer has one special thing that she can do, in that she can call the jam off early, which means that play stops, everything resets, and they try again. Okay, so as you can tell, the Archjammer in white is already back around, and she has scored 3 points so far. Gameplay or area is absolutely inside of the orange lines, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. So she has scored on this blocker, and this blocker over here who is on the way to the penalty box. If you are not on the track in terms of being part of the game because you are penalized, you are automatically scored on as soon as the first actual in-play blocker who has been scored on. You can tell she has not scored on this person yet, simply because her hips have not passed the hips of the opposing blocker. That is the metric for scoring on somebody. Okay, so clear all that off. You noted earlier that we've got these orange track boundaries. Those orange track boundaries define the inbounds part of the game. There's also a little bit more that that comes into play. We'll talk about those at the start of the next jam. Gotta get used to doing the overhead. Okay. So when this jammer gets knocked out, she cannot return, or no skater can return in front of the person that knocked them out, which is why you saw this knockout happen right here, and immediately that blocker started moving backwards. Now, that lead jammer position is what we were just talking about. The 2 taps on the hips, it signals the end to the jam. The jam does not actually end, however, until all 4 whistles have been blown by the ref. All right, so again, everybody settled back. They were trying to establish space before the jam, right? But if you notice, there are these 2 little bitty lines right here. And there's another one you can't really see very well. That's right here. This defines starting box for the blockers. The blockers have to start behind this line and in front of this line. Okay, this is the jam line. This is the pivot line. Jammers have to start behind the jam line. Starting the game up again. VRDL is starting down because they lost 1 player to the penalty box in the previous jam. You notice she's sitting off to the side right here. VRDL Jammer's trying to use her pack as a bit of a wedge, which is why you see Arch Rival rotating back and forth across the surface of the pack this way. Okay, you're seeing a forum being signaled. Sorry, I should have stopped it. Forum being signaled, which is actually sending the VRDL jammer to the penalty box. This is now a penalty. This is now a power jam, rather, and it gives the arch rival team a significant advantage. There's a little bit of a subtlety there. We'll talk about that again in a minute. When you knock somebody down, if you fall down or go out of bounds, you lose your position ahead of them. The reason this is an advantage is because roller derby is a game of balance. You have 2 teams that can score exactly at the same time. And because Arch Rival can focus completely on offense for 30 seconds, they can now throw more bodies at the problem of getting their Jammer free. Now, what you see here is actually a primary strategy in roller derby. This is called a brace. You have one person that's up ahead, usually turned backwards, but not always, and is helping to support at one or two, sometimes three other blockers. What this does is it helps keep the pack moving slowly and that jammer under control. You'll have jammers run into these braced walls at around 15 miles an hour. And so Archrival is sending an offensive skater up to do it. I didn't see what that penalty was, but it's not really a big deal. Arch attacked and then bridged out, and there's some reasons to do that. You can tell the I'd say that is the VRDL jammer that re-entered the pack is being blocked so strongly by VRDL on the outside. Sorry, by Archrival on the outside. Again, knockout, and they try to re-enter behind the person who hit them out, and also anybody who is ahead. Oh, nice close off that inside line by number 10 on VRDL. That's Bisexual, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So right now, what's going on? It's a little bit of a stasis at the end of the dam. Nobody wants to lose a player to the box right before the whistle blows. On replay here. So okay, so you saw in that replay, number 10 from VRDL did a backwards block, right? Get back just a little bit, right here. So this is legal because at all times she's moving in derby direction, right? If she went instead the other direction, she would be getting a clockwise block and would go to the penalty box for it. So this is one of the sort of basic contact rules. Now, I can question the legality of this right here. You're not really supposed to make contact above the shoulders. We like our brains and we don't want them to get hit, but that's sort of a fleeting thing. So it can be hard to see in the moment. And if you notice, we've got this situation here: a skater, and a skater. What's going on here? Why they are not rushing up to help their buddies is because they are trying to keep Bisexual in play. So, like soccer has an offsides, hockey has an offsides, roller derby has a zone of legal play. That zone is defined by what is called the pack. The pack is the largest group of skaters within, largest group of blockers within 10 feet of each other, right? So there's a bunch of people over here, and then there's less than 10 feet between the hips of these people. And then from that last pack skater, there's a 20-foot margin, right? That's why you see these little hash marks. They're there to help the refs and the skaters know. That's cool, Beast Guy. That's there to help the refs and the skaters know how far they've got. Okay, so this is called bridging, where you drop a skater, and then you have a little bit of room to work at the top. So here you go. Set off. So nice little twitch to do it. Since she knocked out that jammer, she could recycle her back. Settling back, trying to close off these lines. The big advantage at the starts here are that you want these lines occupied by your blocker and have your jammer come through that line. So we're gonna just let it run for a second. Nice little bit of jammer on jammer defense. Good pickup, good little bit of O. See how they're bridging out, challenging the last blocker at the top of the pack. Oh goodness, and there they go. The jammers are now in a jammer race. The question now is whose pack is at the back? So Archrival is lead jammer, but their pack is at the end, and so they're trying very hard to pick off 1 or 2 people in order to give their jammer a chance to score. Unfortunately, they couldn't do it, so they called the jam off instead of trying to score. This is a defensive motion because roller derby is a game of point denial as much as it is a game of point collection. So they called it off so that the other team did not have a chance to score because the other team was in a better position. They're in a tight scrum right here between the jam line, and they probably going to settle back again. Yep, they settle back. Each team trying to insert blockers into the opposing one to play offense, but also have some coverage. VRDL making a strong motion out the line, but Woodard's from Archrival shutting it off. That's 8-10 in white. If you can tell, you're bridging out at the top again here. Archrival manages to stay in bounds. Not lead jammer. She probably passed somebody while they were both out of bounds. It's not a penalty, but also you don't get credit for it. So if it had been a scoring pass, you would not have gotten a point. So you'll see a couple of referees that are holding up hands. They are signaling the amount of points scored on the last pass. Since you can score a maximum of 4 points per pass, you only need 4 fingers. They can do it with 1 hand. They communicate that to the non-skating officials who run the scoreboard. Archrival making a strong motion up the inside. This clockwise rule is one of the main advantages that jammers have over blockers. If you notice, again, there's a bridge being dropped right here to keep this tripod in play. There's a tripod in the back working it here. VRDL managing to drive the jammer out of bounds. And so you see this long recycle, right? They are getting all the space they can get now between where they were, where they would almost had to let that jammer go, and where that drawback happens, right? And that gives them also a chance to play some offense right here on the Archrival pack to try to spring their jammer on the way back. Got to hit up. Archrival, on the other hand, managing to shut it off. Nope, I heard whistles. Don't know what that's about. Archrival blocker going to the box for some kind of illegal contact, I would suspect. Victorian jammers are known for being powerful and really trying to run the lines. As you see, Sarah Love there does escape up the lines after working it through. What we've got going on here is the Archrival jammer, Brictator, is sort of stuffed up. She's taken her helmet cover off. Right now it's currently in her hand, right? And this is one of the weird sort of things about roller derby. The jammer is the only point scorer, but the person who starts as a jammer does not always have to stay the jammer. Person with a stripe on her helmet can be is the pivot, and they can take the star from that jammer. When they do so, they become the jammer for the remainder of the jam. You do this to keep the jam going or to try to get the star moving, and they manage to get out as it is. Currently, it's an 8-0 jam for Archrival. So Archrival, very similar to VRDL earlier in the game, try to move the pack forward in order to give their jammer time to catch up and prevent scoring opportunities for the opposing jammer. Everything was reset. I suspect the VRDL called it off. And in just a second, I'm going to stop, and if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask them at this point. We can talk about some rules, or we can talk about some strategies. So roller derby blocking is half positional, half contact. It may not look like the contact is very hard because nobody's really falling, but that's because these blockers are extremely good. They are, ooh, nice exit on that outside line by Swanson. So on this power jam right here, right? What's going on is Arch Rival has a significant advantage. There are 2 VRDL blockers in the box. That means there's only 2 on the track. And whereas Arch Rival has a full set of blockers that can play offense on these 2. And they've got a positional advantage. There's an interesting thing about roller derby. It's played on a track, which means that it's not always on a straightaway, because and that matters because the geometry can really play in your favor as a jammer. If you can get this inside, it's like getting the inside line in a race, right? You've got a significant geometric advantage. So, Arch Rivals sending their jammer in to probably attack right here. And then they're also hinting that they're going to sweep and just sort of swallow up the opposing defense in order to let their jammer go free. VRDL runs away. Now, the problem is they broke the pack. There's more than 10 feet here, and there was actually a call about that. Does not matter in the end. Arch Rival now trying to... Aha! Yes, again, the blocker there. Let's rewind that real quick. They play a nice little bit of offense. They catch the VRDL blocker sleeping. Right here, white 23 comes up, snaps, puts that blocker out of bounds, and moves back. The blocker re-enters ahead, which is a track cut. Now VRDL only has one blocker on the track as their jammer re-enters. The VRDL jammer attacks the tripod, but is not able to get through on the initial pass. Does do a good job of using that geometry I was just talking about of the turn in their favor. Again, Arch Rival leads in with a bit of offense. VRDL blockers are starting to return to the track, so now there's going to be a lessening of that offensive advantage. There's that runaway again. All right, so let's talk about this for just a second. One of the significant things about roller derby strategy is pack control. How much space between you and the opposing team, who's in front and who's in back. So when you're watching it, keep an eye on who's setting up where, because it'll tell you whether they want a hard contact with that opposing jammer if they're in the back, or whether they want to sort of string it out, keep themselves safe up top. Any questions at this point? Feel free to ask anything. We can also move on. I will talk really briefly about the importance of this game, though. We'll do that while we're watching, however. VRDL is literally, I believe, the number 2 team in the world right now, or was at this point. 2 years ago, they were the first non-American team to win the WFTDA championships, taking the Hydra down to Australia with them. In doing so, they sort of brought their very aggressive, very physical, and assertive style of pack play to the fore. They've been known for years for their bracing and for their formations, but it wasn't until they really brought their physical play to the forefront that they managed to take the Hydra. Last year, the Rose City Rollers, the Wheels of Justice, as their all-stars, managed to beat VRDL again. And sorry, I was looking for a call there. And they brought the Hydra back to the U.S. They are from Portland, Oregon. So what you see going on right this second is Archrival doing a very good job of playing through the VRDL offense. It may look a little bit chaotic, but basically what's happening is every time VRDL's O makes a move to cut off a lane or to move somebody out of position, like this blocker is right here, cutting off the Brace's rotation, they manage to either swing behind it or to roll all the way around it and recapture that opposing jammer. As you can see, just like maintaining coverage throughout that. And VRDL being very careful there in their offense because, again, they don't want to lose somebody to the box. They knew they had about 10 seconds before the Archrival jammer re-entered play to score on them. So they're being careful, maintaining their pack before the call off, so they didn't have to start down on the next start. So this game goes back and forth for most of it, but I want to go ahead and take us to the second half at this point, where we can sort of watch the last minutes of this game. And we're going to bring it up to about here with, call it 10 minutes left in the half. All right, so we've got an interesting situation here. VRDL is down blockers. If you can see, they have two in the box here. One that is sitting and one that is standing. When you have when you're in the box, you have to sit for 20 seconds, and then at the last 10 seconds of your penalty, you stand. That's a signal to anybody on the track that they are about to re-enter, which is especially important when the person in the box is the jammer. But in this case, it also would set up an interesting thing. If this person were to get an immediate penalty, if either of the VRDL blockers were to get an immediate penalty, they would have to go to the box and sit down. If the blocker were sitting though, and that VRDL blocker got a penalty, they would not be able to serve that penalty because there is no space on the track or no space in the box for them. So they would have to return to the track until one of their compatriots stood up, at which point there'd be 3 people in the box for VRDL. It's a little bit confusing sometimes, but it does keep play moving. At this point in the game, both teams are a little bit more tired, and they've also got a feel for each other's play. VRDL being very assertive on their setup here, trying to make sure they've got a little bit of coverage, but they're also playing some offense. The pivot was also playing a little bit of offense. Was not able to contain. 2 blockers against a very agile jammer is a rough situation to be in. Both jammers are out of the pack. They make entry very carefully because they don't want to get a back block. And they manage to pick up all 4 from the opposing team. At this point, I want to say thank you to Northeastern, I think it's Northeast Derby Report. They are kindly letting me use this footage, and they were the original streamer. They are here on Twitch, so feel free to give them a follow. They are in the chat currently in terms of the messages we dropped in. And we will also be having some live streamed high-end roller derby this weekend. The Denver Mile High Club is going to be skating against my team, the Texas Roller Girls Texecutioners. They are the number 5, and we are number 6 in the world. That will be streamed by 5on5 Media, also here on Twitch. which is just 5-on-5, I believe. I don't think it's 5-on-5 media. I could be wrong. But regardless, give them a follow if you want to watch. We will be skating at 8 p.m. Denver time. There's also, earlier than that, a 6 p.m. game for the Texas Chainsaws against the Dallas B team. So that is the Texas B team against the Dallas B team. If you notice there was a really interesting thing that happened. So this is getting a little bit more into the strategy of things. Roller Derby is a game where you have to manage offense and defense at the same time. You cannot, in the highest levels of the game today, just play defense, right? And it's not viable to just play offense either. So, in this case, the VRDL pack here, right? Even though they're down a player, they make a choice to move away from the arch player who is likely playing offense, and they move up in front. So the reason they do that is because they are making a motion here to contain this arch rival tripod. So they are covering the inside lane, the outside lane, and they've got a safety up here who can move to either position to support. And so they're just going to stay in that containment. Arch does a good job of moving up against it, but they made that initial pickup. They were not successful in the offensive part of it, but they did cover and did keep the arch rival offense from having a strong chance to play against them. The benefit of this for them is that they also managed to take up a large part of the track with the arch rival blockers, meaning that since we cannot phase through each other, the arch rival jammer could not just go through the middle of their tripod. It looks like they did actually manage to get a lead, VRDL did here. And they are now on their second scoring pass. That is likely going to be a low block. No? Yes, okay. So that was a low block. This is one of the contact penalties. We actually have not seen a whole bunch of contact penalties come out of this game. It was a little bit looser ref than some we have seen in the past, which is fine. Just one of those things. High-end derby can be sort of difficult. So what you'll see is right here. We'll do it in slow motion. You'll see the VRDL jammer in blue entering the pack, getting hit legally, and taking out the legs of an arch rival blocker. Any contact below mid-thigh that was not caused by an illegal action of another skater of the other team is a penalty. It's a low block. So you'll notice that the VRDL jammer, even though she is lead, is now going to be going to the penalty box. She's unable to call it off, which means that this jam is going 2 minutes. Lead jammers can call off the jam, or they can let it run to 2. But when you take off the star or you go to the penalty box, you lose lead jam. So when that jammer comes back, she will no longer have the ability to end the jam before its natural conclusion. This means it's going to turn into a slog. Again, we are seeing a run back here from the VRDL jam blockers. They managed to knock out the arch rival jammer in white, the point scorer, and because of that, they can run her back. She cannot re-enter ahead of the other team. It's been 30 seconds. The VRDL jammer is back on the track. But when you're knocked out, you cannot re-enter in front of the person who knocked you out or anybody else who was in front of you at the time that you exited the track, which is actually what happened right as I said it. Could not have done that any better. So, let's take a look at this really quickly. Alright, so, really quickly in slow-mo. The jammer goes out of bounds right here. And as she goes out of bounds, here's a scenario. This is the person who hit her out. This is a person who was behind her at the time she exited the track. And this blocker is in front. She is not allowed to re-enter in front of this blocker or this blocker. As you'll note, she re-enters the track here behind where this blocker has moved. Therefore, she has improved her position in the pack, and that is a track cut. She's going to the penalty box. Very heads-up play by the VRDL blocker 85 there. Yeah, it absolutely can be hard to keep track of it, especially in the situation that we just saw, where the play was muddled. It's a little easier when you are, and you're seeing a timeout being signaled by the arch-rival bench. We're not going to sit right through that. We're going to go ahead and move forward. But play was very muddled right there. Everybody was sort of all bunched up, and there's a lot of mix-up in the packs. Okay, so let's talk about this really quick, because this is an interesting point. When you're watching it at first, it's very hard to do, because you're like, wait a minute, they're all over the place. But there is a flow and a rhythm to the sport. And so once you start playing it, or once you start watching it a little bit more, you can really start to keep track of it. And you can start seeing not so much each individual skater, but sort of the heartbeat of how the pack moves. And that's where roller derby really starts to come alive as a fan. So you can absolutely watch for the big hits. Nothing wrong with that. Everybody loves a big hit, right? Yeah, yeah. You can also watch it for the amazing footwork by the jammers, and a whole bunch of different stuff. There's a lot of different things you can watch, whatever you sort of really are interested in. All right. So we'll talk about what just happened in a second, because it's worthwhile to note. It's sort of a rules thing, but it's a subtle one. But really, watching the pack, watching how it moves and breathes, will help you understand the sport better than anything else. And learning how to watch the chess match of it, absolutely wonderful. So we have got 6 minutes left in the half, and I'm going to go ahead and let it play. But we're going to talk about one thing really quick. So there's a reason why this line is called the pivot line. Remember I told you that this blocker with the stripe on their helmet is the pivot? There's one special thing that the pivot can do other than become the jammer. If they are touching this line, nobody who is not the opposing pivot also touching that line can start in front of their hips. You can use this special feature, this special ability, to assert a little bit of space, because all the blockers have to start between the pivot line and the jammer line. So what you did see here, clear it off, is the where'd it go? Well, they swapped the arch rival pivot there to make sure that the pivot's on the line and in a good position. And you saw the VRDL pivot right here put her toe on the line, so she can then sort of move these arch rivals out of the blockers out of the way. Just a little trickery. Yet again, they're trying real hard. playing Twister on the line. Trying to isolate a blocker. And specifically, they were trying to isolate 8-10, Kayla Woodard. who is absolutely an amazing blocker. As you can just tell, like, she's just doing an amazing amount of work out there. Yeah, you absolutely have to have this. You don't have to have this many refs. It would be very difficult to ref a higher level game without a full complement. But with this much going on, it can be very difficult to see sort of what is happening here. Again, you're bridging out the top of that pack. That blocker moves forward a little bit, too much, and they have to release a jammer at the top of the pack because they've reached the end of the engagement zone. VRDL Jammer is re-entering the pack, makes a nice entry. You can tell that the arch rival pack was not really paying attention, did not expect the Jammer to come back this way. This is towards the end of the game, and you can tell that both teams are losing a little bit of focus at this point. So again, this is Flat Track Roller Derby, played under the WFTDA rule set. VRDL moves back to the jam line to make pickup at the back of the pack so that they don't have to worry about being out of play in the front. Arch Rival chooses to play up top, makes the knockout, and rolls the opposing jammer back. I saw a track cut signals. Is that on the? That is. It was on the VRDL jammer. This is now power jam for Arch Rival. VRDL's power jam kills are really good. They're extremely powerful in terms of keeping somebody at the back of the pack and running away. The reason they keep somebody at the back of the pack, now you have to re-enter, person, please get back on the track, is because it protects their runaway. So it's interesting you talk about energy. Part of my nice hit by we're gonna rewind that so y'all can see this because it's a nice subtle thing. Part of my job as a blocker is to create an energy differential. And hi Angus, how's it going? You want to make the jammers expend more energy than you are, right? So part of how you do that is using tripods so that you're sharing the energy across all three of the blockers that are being engaged in that tripod. And part of that is in just your sort of body position, taking their good pushing angles away. Number 10, VRDL, current brace at the top of the pack, is very good with this. And what you'll see here is that she's risking a clockwise block. Yeah, absolutely. Lots of physics here. She's risking a clockwise block, right? Because if she pushes straight this direction, she is going counter derby, and that is a penalty. It's a contact penalty, right? So instead, what she does is she takes her left shoulder, drops it back, and snaps her right shoulder around. And as you can see, that sort of whirlwind action, it throws her sideways and throws the jammer out of bounds. Watch that right now. Boom. Down. Now they can run back to the back of the pack again. If you notice, since she was the one who knocked out, she's the one who's important to get back there. They're bridging her backwards because you can bridge backwards as well. They would like to get out of the apex because that geometry is difficult to manage. As you can tell, Arch Rival having a little bit of a hard time on it too. Now it's a standard brace tripod from VRDL. They go with a little bit with a pinching sort of like honeypot where they trap the jammer in between their sides. Some teams, like Texas, for example, tend to want to do a hard seam and put people on their backs because it's not legal to blow up somebody's spine. Like that, she's going to go to the penalty box. So I apparently have really good timing on talking about this because this is the second time this has happened. But if you watch this right here, we have got the arch rival jammer challenging a VRDL blocker, right? What's going to happen is the arch-rival Jammer sees a clear line, and all she has to do is beat this one person. But the VRDL Jammer manages to turn around and get into a position where the line that that Bricktator wanted to take, the arch-rival Jammer, is covered by her back. Bricktator does not redirect off of it, and as a result, blows up her back, goes to the back box for a back block. And yes, I absolutely feel that roller derby is a combat sport more than just sort of a generic contact sport like football. Football has a lot of physics, a lot of understanding of body mechanics in it. Please do not get me wrong. But roller derby's long-running contact is more akin to like Greco-Roman wrestling or grappling in judo or some kind of sparring than it is like football's brief engagement and disengagement metrics or habits, not metrics. So this is an official review. The arch rival coach is asking for something, probably arguing that the VRDL blocker did not have an established position and therefore was not eligible to have a back block performed on her because she engaged with her back. I don't know who wins it. We can figure out in just a second when we are done with the timeout. All right. The penalty was not overturned. It's a worthwhile official review. If you do a official review and you do not win, you lose that official review. If you win the official review, you keep it and can use it one more time, regardless of whether you lose or win that one. You still maintain it. It can also be used just as a timeout, saying I'm using this official review as a timeout. Speaking of timeouts, if you notice the dots next to the names here, we did not cover that earlier. This generally signals the 3 timeouts and 1 official review possessed by each team. And yeah, it's a far more strategic game and technical game than I think a lot of people expect it to be, which is part of why it can be a little interesting to pick it up as a new fan. Again, you've got pivot toes on the line. They're forcing that space for their team. This is a power jam start for VRDL. VRDL is trying to surround the arch rival pack so that they can find an open space on the line for their jammer. VRDL does a good job of moving through at least enough. However, over time, the VRDL offense is effective, picks them apart. Arch rival here is trying to set up, get ready for that re-entry by the VRDL jammer, and the arch rival jammer is now back on the track, which is why you see VRDL absolutely leveling Bricktator and setting her almost all the way through the ref lane and into the crowd. If you see people set up pyramids in the corners, it's because they're hoping a skater hits them. So both teams here doing a very good job of absolutely just stifling work. Arch rival cycles an offensive blocker back to the pack, hoping that they can get some motion, but in the end, the VRDL jammer manages to break through the tripod, calls off the jam. There is 1 minute and 30 seconds left. Victorian Roller Derby won the WFTDA champion from 2 years ago, had not been defeated other than by Rose City during the championship game last year. This year, they had 2 very close games, and arch rival puts up a very strong effort. But at this point, there is 13 points left with 1 minute left. It's possible, but it is not easy to make up this kind of stuff. Hi, Kerwin. I am absolutely a blocker. So we've got a team timeout here. Arch Rival did this to stop the period clock because there's 1 minute left on the period clock. I have jammed on occasion. I occasionally play an offensive blocker. I'm very rarely a pivot. I've got decent footwork, but my love is in making other people's life difficult, not in scoring points. I love the communication and teamwork that's required for blocking. You see, as they all give each other high fives. Arch Rival is in a rough position here. They've got one thing that can happen. If they get lead here, they can run the clock out because the jam is 2 minutes for its natural expiry. Sorry, natural expiration is in 2 minutes. If they get it, they can run the jam out or run the jam out until it's less, it's 30 seconds or so, 20 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever left on the clock, and then call a timeout to reset it again. They did not get that lead. Now they have a really hard time because even if they get their jammer out or they star pass to the pivot like they're trying to do here, they're going to have a hard time making up that now 17-point lead that VRDL has. And VRDL controls the end of this game. They can choose to run it out for the full 2 minutes of the jam, which would be odd in this case, given how close it is. Or in 23 seconds, VRDL can call the jam and end the game and win it. So VRDL is definitely playing it safe here. The last thing they want is to send their jammer to the box. Even though the arch rival jammer has made it around and has now scored some points, they don't care. They had enough of a lead that they couldn't be threatened, and as you saw, she's tapping her hips. That's the end of the game. Arch rival, even though they lost, just put down an amazing performance against one of the best and the hardest playing teams in the WFTDA. So, that's roller derby. What do y'all think? Feel like you understand a little bit better than you did before you came in? Boop, boop, boop. I forgot to put the chat. Let's see, that is browser. Yeah, add existing chat. Okay. Yeah, I forgot to do that. Yep, that's Derby. Well, I am very glad that. Yeah, I'm very glad that you all stopped by. Anybody have any questions? I know it's sort of a lot to absorb. There's a lot that goes on in this sport. Yeah, I'm very interested in doing some more analysis. At least you're cute. Good enough. What was if it? Well, it's okay. We're not teaching right this second. We're just sort of helping you all do it. And if you can see, it takes a lot to run roller derby. So if you have a league around you, go check it out. Consider volunteering. But if nothing else, give it a watch. I will say that next time we do this, I will probably choose a game that has a little less going on in terms of strategy, so it's a little easier to follow. But I wanted an awesome, hard-hitting game for our first one. So we're going to go ahead and bring this down. And my webcam is being really choppy today. I don't know why, but that's life. We can just go ahead and close that. But thank you all for coming through. Who do I think will win champs this year? Texas, of course. Have I turned it off and back on? Yes, I've turned it off and back on. I think there's actually some driver issues going on. I have some problems with this webcam. Yeah, well, Texas has not held the Hydra. Um, we won the first, if I remember correctly, the first sort of championship nationals tournament when it was Dust Devil, and since then we have not won, but we've been consistently top 10 most of the time, inside of the top 6. We've returned to the top 6 this year, and we are playing in a way that I have not seen Texas play in a long time. So it's going to be a hard tournament, but don't count us out. Just for the a little bit of history lesson, the Texas Roller Girls are actually the sort of godmother league of flat track roller derby. We are where flat track started in 16 years ago. Do the math. 2006, I guess. No, good lord, 2003. So the Hydra is the trophy. It's the equivalent of the Stanley Cup. The WFTDA championships used to be nationals, but it's an international sport at this point. It's held every year in late September, early October. I'm sorry, late October, early November. Wrong way around. Those are the playoffs. The playoff tournaments this year are going to be in Seattle and in North Carolina. I believe it's Winston-Salem. I should know that. That's a tournament that I'm going to. So the top 3 teams get a bye. So the top ranked teams, the top 4 teams maybe get a bye, and then everyone else in the top 20 or so get fed into 2 playoff tournaments. The top 3 teams from each tournament go to the WFTDA championships, which this year are going to be in Montreal. Actually, not in the same venue, unfortunately. I do enjoy skating in that venue, but it's going to be in Montreal. So if you happen to be in Canada land, you can take the short hop because Canada is very small, right? And come check it out. Steel City, yes, I have skated against Steel City when I skated for Nashville. I skated for Nashville for a long time, not Blitzburg. So Steel City is a lot of fun. They have a great culture, and Coach Dad, their head coach, is sort of a derby Twitter personality. So, not all roller derby is at this high of a level. Obviously, I told you there's 2 of the best teams in the world. So if you've ever thought about skating, give it a shot. You don't have to perform like you just saw. You will not be going up against people like that when you first put on skates. But it's a wonderfully involving and demanding sport that will help bring something out of you. There are also men's leagues out there. So, later, Grognard. Have fun. Thanks for stopping in. The Grognard, by the way, is actually associated with the Minnesota Roller Girls. MNRG is having a little bit of a rebuild year this year, but they're definitely working it. Yeah, no, absolutely. Go check it out. And even if you don't feel like competing, there are a lot of ways to be involved in the culture. We are a volunteer sport. Everyone that runs it is a volunteer, other than a few people at the WFTDA itself, who help administer the overall state of the sport. Well, you can also NSO. You don't like if it's a motion issue. There's absolutely something that you can do in that way. Uh, there's score box, penalty box, or scoreboard, and other things that you can do. But also, there's absolutely nothing wrong with being a fan and just watching. It's a lot of fun. So, I think we're going to close it down. But any last questions before we do so? I forgot to turn the chat on here too. Weird. It's on, it's just not showing. Oh, it's at the bottom. You're welcome. Thank you all for stopping in and joining. Uh, I really enjoyed doing this, and I plan on doing something similar to it again. We may not do a full game like we did here, but we'll do something. Maybe pick out some specific plays and go over those sort of one off. I don't know. Hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you for stopping by.